Hey FRC, it's Miss Cluett here. Today I want to talk to you about one of my more recent reads, actually, but one that I really enjoyed, and I think you will too. The name of the book is called Funeral Songs for Dying Girls, and it's by Cherie Dimaline. She's actually the same author who wrote the Marrow Thieves series. So this story explores themes of loss, of loved ones, of home, of friendships, grief, and the struggle to belong, which I think we can all, feel. So, I want to give you a brief summary of this book. It centers around a teenage girl who's 16 years old. Her name's Winifred, and she lives in a cemetery with her father, who works at the crematorium. Her father has been emotionally absent since her mother's death at birth, and Winifred spends her days roaming the graveyard and finds solace in daydreaming. So, they learn that the crematorium and the cemetery are going to be sold and they'll have to move. So she decides to do whatever she can to stay in their home. Her plan is to trick the tourists that come into the area to think that their cemetery is haunted and do ghost tours. However, things change when she meets a real ghost named Phil, who was an indigenous young woman. I didn't like Winifred at the beginning of the story and found her unlikable due to her loneliness and grief, but she grows a lot throughout the novel after meeting Phil, and you find yourself starting to connect and care for her. So her interactions with Phil force Winifred to confront the grief and her own identity, which is split because she's Métis from her mother's side, and she finds herself being caught between these two different halves of herself, struggling to connect with her indigenous heritage. Phil tells us her story as well and how she died, which touches on the subject of missing and murdered indigenous women and girls. But throughout this story, it helps Winifred to connect with her own identity as being Indigenous and allows her to create new relationships. In Funeral Songs for Dying Girls, the author's eerie but beautiful style of writing transports the reader through loss and tells the importance of storytelling as healing and central to finding oneself. So, more importantly, I think Winifred's journey teaches the importance of accepting grief instead of letting it fester and consume inside you. You have to deal with it. I would like to read a passage from a chapter entitled Find Me. You will find that the way that the author writes can be a little harsh at times, but I find sometimes humor in it, but also some great moments as well. This is one of them. Dad kept some of my mother's ashes under his bed. He didn't think I knew, but I knew. I found them collecting laundry last winter. Laundry was my job, cooking and the dishes were his. I also vacuumed, and we split the bathroom because no one needs to do that shit job full time. I followed a trail of balled up socks across the floor, tossing them in the basket like an old fashioned farmer. I got on my hands and knees, checked under his bed. One more sock and a suitcase. Sweet! It was old, definitely vintage. Pale blue and hard sided with a pearl plastic handle on silver fittings. I pulled it out. There were clasps on the front, and I slid them up and over the hooks with satisfying snaps. I pulled it closer so that it would sat between my outstretched legs. I wasn't trying to snoop. I already assumed it had belonged to my mother's, so considered it fair game. I probably should have taken a minute to consider why Dad hadn't shared it with me yet, unlike everything else that was like hers. But I didn't. I just pulled it out and yanked it open. Ashes are just calcium phosphates, potassium, and sodium, with a few other minerals. There's everything that allows us to stand, taken down to the particle. I think about that when people are so grief stricken they have to sit down. We keep a lot of chairs around the chapel. People sit in the cemetery all the time. Some families have started to make the gravestone markers into benches. Honestly, that's kind of a weird section of reading, but it really shows you how dramatic but also descriptive the book can be in different ways. This book is a great example of realistic fiction, but also kind of going into the supernatural. However, no matter if you believe in ghosts or not, this book is great for coming to terms with maybe the grief that you might be feeling, as well as just being an awkward teenager sometimes. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Miss Perlov, and I am the drama, improv, and next year theater production teacher at FRC. This is my cat Zell, and she's going to help me tell you why you should read Bridge to Terabithia. Sound good, Zell? She's not into it. Why you should read this book? Because it's not a long read. It's not a complicated read in terms of language. I think I read it in about grade 5 or so. But it is, I remember the moment that I read kind of the tragic moment in this book and what an effect it had on me. I love the beauty of their friendship. I love the trial and tribulations that they go through trying to fit in with their families and with their friends and with their community. And I love the fantasy world that they create together in Terabithia. As a theater person myself, I know the value and importance of play and remembering to use our imaginations and our creativity. And it's a beautiful story about finding that person who just gets you and makes your life better. And if you have friends like that, this is a good book. Warning though, it does get really sad. But it's worth it if you can handle it. I would highly recommend this book. Pick this one. Pick us for March Madness. Zell. Pick us for March Madness and Bridge to Terabithia. Bye. I am going to be throwing it way back to 1977 to Catherine Patterson's Bridge to Terabithia, my absolute favorite book from elementary school. They didn't look like Jess's idea of rich, but even he could tell that the jeans they wore had not come off the counter at Newberry's. There was no TV at the Burks, but there were mountains of records and a stereo set that looked like something off of Star Trek. And although their car was small and dusty, it was Italian and looked expensive too. They were always nice to Jess when he went over, but then they would suddenly begin talking about French politics or string quartets, which he at first thought was a square box made out of string, or how to save the Timberwolves, or redwoods, or singing whales, and he was scared to open his mouth and show once and for all how dumb he was. He wasn't comfortable having Leslie at his house either. Joyce Ann would stare, her index finger pulling down her mouth and making her drool. Brenda and Ellie always managed some remark about girlfriend. His mother acted stiff and funny just the way she did when she had to go up to the school about something. Later, she would refer to Leslie's tacky clothes. Leslie always wore pants, even to school. Her hair was shorter than a boy's. Her parents were hardly more than hippies. Maybelle either tried to push in with them and Leslie or sulked at being left out. His father had seen Leslie only a few times and had nodded to show that he noticed her, but his mother said that she was sure he was fretting that his only son did nothing but play with girls, and they were both worried about what might become of it. Jess didn't concern himself with what would become of it. For the first time in his life, he got up every morning with something to look forward to. Leslie was more than his friend. She was his other, more exciting self, his way to Terabithia and all worlds beyond.